Bakare-Yusuf.
Are we live? Hello, Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to Borderlines. We're doing a special broadcast, live broadcast from Istanbul. I'm in my hotel room. If you see me dressed up on our YouTube page, which is Nigeria Info 99.3 FM, is because I am at the Palestinian Media Conference, which is taking place in Istanbul. Actually, I only arrived today. And I'm dressed up because we're going to be having, a gala evening later, and we have to dress and represent our country. So, which is why you see me dressed like this. And we're welcome. Join us. You will be able to send your questions and calls once we open the line. Now, remember, I am not in the studio. I am at the hotel. So bear with us. This is the first time we're doing this. It's exciting, and I know you're all going to enjoy it. Now, my guest today is Jeenah. You know Jeenah. He was with us last week, I believe it was. He talked to us about what's going on in Syria. Well, today, it's even more exciting because in the last 2 days, Israel and Hamas had agreed a ceasefire, but Israel didn't stop killing despite the agreement on the ceasefire, despite the announcement. And also, since then, several hundreds, tens of hundreds have been killed in Palestine. Welcome, my guest, Naim Jeenah, who it is I'm going to be talking to about this. Naim, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Good to be back on Borderlines.
Oh, it's good to have you back. I'm in Istanbul. I actually expected to see you here at Tower Soul, the Palestinian Media Conference. It's quite it's exciting, but this is the first time we're doing this live. So, well, live from
we'll make it
abroad.
Through the next hour. We'll make it through the next hour, I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell me, what were your thoughts when you heard about the ceasefire? Your immediate thoughts, your first thoughts?
I think, like many Palestinians and others all around the world, there was a sense of kind of relief. Relief, but also mixed feelings, particularly because this ceasefire could have come into operation in June of last year. The agreement that was signed 2 days ago is almost exactly the same, very similar to the agreement that was announced, that was unveiled by American President Joe Biden in May of last year, which he claimed at the time was drafted by the Israelis. And as you know, Hamas, within hours said that it broadly accepted it, and within days endorsed the agreement. Israel never accepted the agreement. And now, 9 months later, there's a sense that they finally accepted that agreement. So, thousands of lives that could have been saved over the past 9 months were sacrificed on the altar of Israel's genocidal games. But nevertheless, a sense of relief that people in Gaza, particularly children, will not have bombs falling on their heads. They might be living among rubble, completely destroyed, but at least the bombing will stop. That feeling 2 days ago has slowly been evaporating as we heard more and more statements coming out from Israel about the deal.
And this is the thing. It is estimated that at least 10,000 lives of innocent Palestinians could have been saved had Joe Biden put pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to actually sign this deal way back in May, and then secondly, June, July. What do you think was stopping Biden?
Biden is a Zionist, number one. I mean, he said so in his own words. He's a Zionist. He would do whatever is necessary to protect and defend Israel, including, it is now clear, enabling and promoting a genocide. So he wasn't willing to put any pressure on Israel to do anything. Remember that over the past 15 months, he set a number of kind of red lines. If Israel is not allowed to do this, and the next day they went ahead and did it. They were not allowed to invade Rafah, and then they went and did it. They should scale down on killing civilians, and the next day they went and bombed so-called safe areas. They shouldn't attack hospitals, and now there isn't a single hospital that has not been attacked in Gaza by Israel. So he had these kind of dissolving red lines for Israel, and basically gave them a green light to do whatever they liked. And the importance of this is highlighted by the fact that the only reason Israel signed this agreement 2 days ago is because of the pressure put on them, not by a president, but by the president-elect, by Trump. And of course, Trump is no friend of the Palestinians. For Trump, it's quite simple. He doesn't want to walk into the White House and inherit a war. And so he basically told Netanyahu, finish this off. I want a ceasefire before the 20th of January. And so they agreed on a ceasefire to start on the 19th of January. Biden could have done the same thing in May, in June, in May, in February, in January, in December 2023. He could have said, if you don't stop this genocide, because that's in January. That's what the International Court of Justice said, that it's plausibly a genocide. If you don't stop this genocide, we'll stop funding you, we'll stop giving you weapons. Over the past 15 months, the United States has provided more than $30 billion worth of weaponry, just weaponry, apart from other aid to Israel. The threat of that could have stopped this genocide a long time ago. But Biden didn't want to do that. He wanted to just continue, he and his Secretary of State, continue enabling the genocide and enabling the Israeli government in its efforts.
It's interesting that you mentioned Trump, and it is true, many have said, Trump is no friend of the Palestinians. Yet he's the one that put pressure, and apparently salty words were used to put pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to say, get this done, whatever the case. Two questions that I want to ask, but I'll start with one. If we go back to 2020, President Trump called Netanyahu a traitor, because he was one of the first to congratulate Joe Biden for his election win, which Trump felt was a fraud. Do you think it's possible that Trump is on a revenge tactics? He might not want to inherit a war, but could he be actually staging his revenge?
I don't think it's a revenge. I mean, I don't think that the relationship between him and Netanyahu is as close as it was when he was president the last time. Precisely because of what you're saying. But I don't think this is revenge. I think, for one thing, he doesn't want, he's projected himself as this person who ends wars, doesn't start wars. So he doesn't want to inherit the war, number one. Number two, there's a lot of speculation, including among Israelis, that there's some kind of a deal being made between Trump and Netanyahu. What is that deal? The speculation is that he twisted Netanyahu's arm to stop the genocide in Gaza, and in return, he will support Israel annexing the whole West Bank, which is, of course, much larger than Gaza is. And you know that the Israeli Knesset and the Israeli government over the past months have resolved that they are going to annex the West Bank and make it part of Israel. In complete violation of international law, of course, but that's the decision that they've taken. If Trump has said to Netanyahu, stop the genocide, and he wouldn't have said genocide, stop the war, and I'll support your annexation of the West Bank. The West Bank for Israel is a much bigger prize than Gaza is. The West Bank holds the opportunity, apart from the fact that there's all of these religious sites there that Israel wants to take control of. It also holds the possibility of large-scale additional illegal settlements, because all settlements are illegal under international law, and the possibility of expanding those, the possibility of pushing Palestinians off their land, off their farms, etc. Much greater potential there in the West Bank than in Gaza. So if such a deal was made, then it would be understandable that Netanyahu would go along with this. So I don't think it's revenge at all. I think that there's much.
So you think it's a quid pro quo,
yes,
which is what Trump is known for doing. Let's park Trump for a moment. Let's talk about the people who are the Palestinians especially, and of course the hostages, who are the most important in this current genocide. What do we know of the deal? Can you give us any detail, most especially with regards to Israel has a history of giving one Israeli soldier for 1,000 Palestinians, which actually it's sort of an insight into how they see Palestinians. What is the deal this time, given that there's 90 hostages, of course, most of whom may not be alive? What is the deal that's on the table with regards to hostage exchange?
So first, let me just say that since the deal was signed, Netanyahu has said very little about it. The next morning, yesterday morning at about 3 a.m., he released a statement saying that the deal is not final until his cabinet decides. And then a few hours later, he said that he's postponing the cabinet meeting because he claimed Hamas is backtracking on the deal. Hamas immediately responded, saying that they're fully committed to it. And so that cabinet meeting that was supposed to have taken place yesterday didn't. The security cabinet met about, 2 hours ago, and they decided then to propose to the full cabinet that the deal be accepted. And the full cabinet is meeting right now. They started meeting a few minutes ago.
Right.
It's expected that they will endorse it. But the point I'm making here is that there are no guarantees as far as the Israeli side is concerned. There are no guarantees about whether this deal will go through or whether it will hold. So first, there's this, over the past almost 48 hours, there was this great anxiety about will the Israelis actually accept it or not. This is after they had signed it already. It seems we're at a point now, I might be wrong, the cabinet might decide to reject it, but it seems that they will accept it. If they accept it, the way that the deal would unfold is that the ceasefire starts on Sunday, which means, of course, that they have another more than 24 hours to massacre Palestinians, as they've been doing since the deal was signed. The ceasefire begins on Sunday, and it unfolds in 3 phases. The first phase is once on Sunday, we should see the release of 3 captives who are held by Palestinians. On Monday, the release of 4.
So 3 Israeli hostages.
3 Israeli captives, yes.
Right.
On Monday, 4, and then so that's 7, and then another 26 over the next 40 days. So the first phase is 6 weeks, 42 days. And in terms of who those 33 will be that will be released, there will be captives who are wounded, anyone over 50 years old, and female soldiers. Right? For each of the civilians, that's not the soldiers, 50 Palestinian hostages will be released in return for each one.
50 for one. It's 50 yes. For one. Right.
For each of the female soldiers, 50 Palestinians for one of those, and for each of the non-soldiers, the civilians, 30 will be released. There's been a lot of kind of wrangling about who the Palestinians will be that will be on the list. Hamas, of course, wanted a number of prisoners, some of whom are long-term prisoners as well. But remember that in the past 15 months, Israel has taken hostage thousands of Palestinians in Gaza. Many of them have been tortured. Some of them have had their limbs amputated. A number of them have been raped, male and female, etc. And held in terrible conditions. So all of those would also expect to be released, and then the release of all prisoners all hostages held by Israel who are under 19 years old. In addition to the exchange, Israeli forces will also withdraw to some extent. They'll still be in Gaza, but they will make a phased kind of withdrawal to within just under a kilometer from the Gaza border. They'll dismantle the Netzarim corridor, which at the moment divides Gaza into 1/3 in the north and 2/3 in the south, thus preventing Palestinians from moving between the two areas. And the third big issue in phase 1 is that 608 trucks per day would be allowed to enter. Now, let's remember that all of this, so in the way it's worded, 600 trucks will be allowed to enter. So, you're talking about a ceasefire where Israel is still in control. Israel still decides how many 8 trucks can go in, what will be in those 8 trucks, etc. That's phase 1. On the 16th day of phase 1, negotiations will start about phase 2. Right? So phase 2 is there on paper, but how it would unfold and the time frame for it will be decided in the negotiation. So that's the second opportunity then for Israel to withdraw. And they might at any time in those 6 weeks say, we're done, and start raining bombs on Gaza again. And this is the real danger. And in the Israeli cabinet right now, the extreme ultra-right wingers like Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir are arguing exactly that. In fact, they don't want the ceasefire at all. They want the bombs to continue raining down. But if they lose that, then they will argue that the first phase should go through. They should get those 33 captives back and then, restart the attack on Gaza. The second phase would begin on day 43. Not sure how long that's supposed to take. But in that second phase, the rest of the captives that are being held in Gaza, and this will be essentially, it is male soldiers, a number of them senior officers, who will be then exchanged. We're not sure exactly how many Palestinians would be exchanged per soldier and per officer. It might be different for ordinary soldiers to officers. That will be part of the negotiations that will take place. That will happen in the second phase, and there'll be a slight further withdrawal of Israeli troops. The Philadelphia corridor, which Israel has used along the border between Gaza and Egypt to close off Gaza from Egypt, that will be dismantled and they'll be moved out from there. And then in the third phase, those captives who have been killed, their corpses will be exchanged either for more Palestinian prisoners as well as Palestinian prisoners who have been killed. So those, and then by the end of the third phase, the ceasefire would become permanent and Israeli forces would move outside of Gaza. That's the plan. Whether it happens or not, I think that everyone is on tenterhooks even now and will continue to be for the next 6 weeks.
What happened? We seem to have had a network cut. Have we lost connection with Naeem?
I'm here.
Okay. Right, okay. I thought we had lost connection with you. All right, so let's talk about the far right in Israel, in the Israeli politics. The one thing that constantly becomes illuminated over and over again is the fact that you have... Naeem, can you still hear me? I don't know if we're having technical issues.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
I think there's other sounds from the studio, but I can hear you.
Okay, great. So the one thing that becomes more and more illuminated, most especially since 7/10, since the sort of the genocide began, is the fact that you have an Israeli parliament, the Knesset, which is in complete disarray. They don't trust each other. They don't like each other. They don't seem to be able to agree on anything but killing the Palestinians. When you look at the likes of Benjamin Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and indeed even Daniela Wise, how strong do you think they are to be able to derail this current ceasefire plan? Could Netanyahu do without them?
So this is the thing. The answer to that question is yes. Netanyahu can do without them, but he's using them as a good excuse. To say that if they don't agree, then the integrity of his coalition is at stake and his government might collapse, etc. It is possible his government could collapse if they pull out. So it's those two parties and a few others who are bloodthirsty racist right wingers who just want to see Palestinians killed. I mean, Ben-Gvir said yesterday, I think it was, that the war must continue. Palestinians must continue to be killed. There must not be a single bit of aid that goes in. Basically, he's saying this genocide must be made, must be done properly. All these Palestinians in Gaza must be killed off. That's what he wants. And so some of these smaller parties there, that is exactly what they want. And if they pull out, apart from those two, but a couple of other parties, it could collapse the government. But in terms of the vote in cabinet right now, even without their votes, the ceasefire can be endorsed. There are sufficient votes to endorse it and move forward with it. So Netanyahu is clear, is number one, as much of a warmonger as those that we are calling the ultra-right. And number two, that he also sees his political future in this. If the government collapses, his political future is at stake, and his personal future, because there's all of these cases in court against him for corruption and all of that. And so a lot of his personal future is linked up to he's not interested in Palestinian lives and genocide and all of that. But you know, he's, as I say, as bloodthirsty as Ben-Gvir or Smotrich. Otherwise, he would have done things differently.
Indeed, let's talk about the injured in Palestine. I mean, they go into thousands and thousands. A great deal of him need medical help outside of the country, given that Israel has destroyed, you know, pretty much all the medical infrastructure, give or take 1 or 2 hospitals. And indeed, we still have some doctors who are in Israeli captivity. Do you think Israel will allow them to go for medical treatment? And if Israel does, do you see this as a long-term thing, or just as a, you know, as a plaster, you know, to cover a crack, so to speak?
So the deal is that in the first phase, the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt would be opened. The Israeli soldiers will move away from Rafah, so they'll create a breach in what is called the Philadelphia Corridor at the moment, and allow those who are ill, particularly seriously ill, to go through into Egypt and then, you know, either receive medical treatment in Egypt or elsewhere. So in that case, the entry or the exit from Gaza will be dependent on Egypt. So theoretically, that movement of extremely ill people could start on Monday. And you know, Israel has accepted that'll happen. Who exactly extremely ill people are, we'll wait to see on Monday and how that pans out. But yes,
let's talk about Egypt.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So it's people, for example, it's people who have cancer and need cancer treatment, which they can't get, right? But then, of course, there are hundreds of thousands who have been wounded, some quite seriously, over the past 15 months. Whether they would also be allowed, you know, we wait to see.
Let's talk about Egypt. How critical do you think Egypt will, although they're part of the whole agreement and the negotiations, but how critical do you think Egypt's role will be to ensure that this ceasefire doesn't break, to ensure that, you know, the likes of the Rafah crossing and, you know, Israel sticking to the agreement continues to stay there? Because Egypt has seemed somehow lukewarm, shall we say, unlike Qatar, who seems to have stayed steadfast on this. How critical do you think their role will be to ensure this ceasefire continues?
I think we need to be a bit sober about this. Firstly, Egypt, I don't believe that its heart is in the right place, since, as you're saying, lukewarm. But secondly, you know, the Qatari Prime Minister, when he announced the deal, said that they would set up a control room in Cairo, in Egypt, that would monitor implementation, and if there are breaches, then to make efforts to fix that. It's a nice sentiment and it looks good on paper. The reality is that if Israel decides to start bombing Gaza again, what is that control room going to do? The control room includes people from Qatar, from Egypt, and from the United States. As long as the United States representatives turn a blind eye, there's nothing that Qatar and Egypt would be able to do to ensure that the deal remains on track. This is the sad reality that we have.
Indeed. So, given where we are now, Israel would, or we could presume Israel has won as Israel, because Israel has pretty much weakened Hamas by killing their leaders, indeed killing the chief negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh. Israel has made Iran weaker. It's made Hezbollah weaker. We spoke about Syria last week. Now, Syria, which is the corridor that Iran uses to get ammunitions to Hamas, is no longer there. Would you say Israel so far has won this war? Or and it's not a war. We must be careful. It's not a war. It is definitely a conflict, but it is not a war. If we look at it from the Hamas side, what has Hamas achieved? And if we look at it from the Israeli side, what has Israel lost? I think that's the better way to put it, given that they're the bigger nation, stronger nation.
So in such an asymmetric kind of warfare, if you like, an unbalanced warfare, the question is the stronger party, and in this case, the stronger party is a state, and the weaker party is a population that is resisting that state. Is that state able to prevail? And the answer in this case is absolutely not. Right at the beginning of this genocide, Israel laid out what its objectives were. Its objectives were to rescue the captives that were being held in Gaza, number one. Number two, its objective was to destroy the armed resistance in Gaza, which includes Hamas, but other groups as well. And number three, to completely dismantle Hamas. None of these three objectives have been met. Israel has killed more of the captives than they've rescued. They've rescued virtually none. They've not managed to make a serious dent in the armed groups in Gaza. In fact, what we're seeing now is that the Qassam brigades, Hamas's armed wing, Saraya al-Quds, the Islamic Jihad's armed wing, as well as the armed wings of the Popular Front, the Democratic Front, and others, have actually been recruiting over the past few months. And by some counts, their numbers are back to what they were in October 2023. The pessimistic count would be not yet back to those numbers, but they've recruited a number. So, and in terms of the Hamas political structure, etc., yes, the leaders have been killed, at least 3 senior leaders, 4. But this is not something that Hamas is unused to. In fact, the way that they are structured is they're structured in such a way that they can absorb such assassinations. And this is from the time of the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. He was assassinated. His successor, Abdulaziz Rantisi, very quickly was assassinated. His successor, etc. So they operate in a kind of collective leadership, which is very cumbersome. Sometimes takes a very long time to make decisions, but it means that there's a resilience in terms of its leadership. So Ismail Haniyeh was knocked off. Mohammed Daif, the military leader, was knocked off. Yahya Sinwar was killed. They continue. After that, they still recruited. Their operation in the past couple of months, their operations have resulted in the deaths of scores of Israeli soldiers in Gaza. So Israel has not achieved any of its stated war aims. All it's managed to do is large-scale destruction. Of course, all the things that you said: hospitals, schools, shelters, people. The Ministry of Health says 46,000. The Lancet report says it's closer to something like 120,000 people who have been killed. It's destruction. That's all they've managed to achieve. Their stated war aims, they have not. From the other side, from the Palestinian side, they are saying that they've managed to hold off the most powerful army in the region for 15 months without allowing that army to achieve anything. And they've done better than all the Arab armies have done in the past almost 80 years. So certainly there's something there, they are saying. They have not backed down. They will, and the other stated aim, of course, is that Hamas will no longer exist in Gaza. And they kept talking about the day after Hamas. Well, Hamas is the one that's negotiating this, has negotiated this deal. There's no day after Hamas. It's still there. Yes, there have been some decapitation with Hezbollah, and they were weakened, particularly for a little while. They seem to be back on track. The Syria factor means that weaponry from Iran will no longer as easily be able to go to Hezbollah, not to Hamas. Hamas weaponry in Gaza was largely over the past few years manufactured in Gaza, not coming from Iran because the routes were completely cut off. So I don't think that the opposition to Israel is as weakened as they would like us to believe. And certainly in Gaza, they've achieved nothing.
Okay. Right. Lagos, Nigeria, the diaspora, where we are reporting, or we're broadcasting live from a cold Istanbul in Turkey. My hands are cold. My guest is Naeem Jeenah, who you all heard last week, and you were all so happy to listen to him. So, of course, we had to invite him back. He's in sunny South Africa. I'm in cold Istanbul. So you can call us now on 0201-277-0993 or on 0201-465-7190. Send your WhatsApp to 0809-597-5805. We don't have much time left. Start calling now. Jeenah, please open the phone lines. Like I said, this is the first time we are doing this live broadcast from abroad, if you like. So let's talk. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Sam.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? So,
yes, you have one question.
My name is Sam from Mapungubwe. Now that Israel has gained nothing and Hamas and Palestine has gained much, will Hamas, based on this condition, will they attack Israel again next time so that they will pass through this same procedure, this type of killing again? Or will Hamas again attack Israel in few years to come? That is my question.
Good question. Thank you. Did you hear that, Naeem? Thank you.
Israel did not gain anything. That is what you said.
Thank you very much. Naeem, if you could write that down. Is there another call coming in? Jeenah? Please, go ahead. Let's go.
Good evening or morning. How are you, Ireti? Good to look here speaking.
I'm very well. It's evening where I am.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. And I greet our guest. I want to ask you a question. Number one, Donald Trump is coming back on Monday. And this expansionist agenda of the Israeli in West Bank and other areas, do you think that is going to continue, considering the fact that Israel can come anytime and say, oh, these buildings flouted the construction rules and they demolished many houses in the past? They are still doing.
But you need to ask your two questions. You're killing the time. The lines are going. I can see Zainab's face in the studio.
Yeah, the question is that, are they going to continue the expansion? And that's one. But number two, what is UK and other Western countries doing, apart from America? Thank you.
Sorry. Right. Okay. Do you have a third? Is there another call? Please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello. Can you speak up loud, please?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Engineer Kundaya from Ikorodu.
Go ahead, Engineer.
I want to ask Naeem, what is the position of the Arab world generally in supporting the rebuilding of Gaza and this latest threat of Israel annexing West Bank? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Naeem, you have three questions there. Well, you want to take one more call? Right, okay, let's take one more call and then I'll give you 3 minutes to answer them. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead. Please speak up and say your name and your question.
You have Emmanuel on the line speaking to you from Ekwe. Number one.
Go ahead.
We put parties to the table, especially by Donald Trump. That is, were they willing, to come into negotiation, especially on the part of Israel? Number one question. Number two is this case of ICJ by South Africa. If I thought there is a ceasefire, is it time to press on with the case? Because Israel seems to have time, now. I don't know if they were attending proceedings. Should South Africa?
I don't understand. Is it time to what? Go ahead. Say that again. Is it time to what, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I'm saying, is it time for South Africa to back down on their case in the...
on their case at the ICJ. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Or it's time to go ahead, press on with the case now that...
Or should they press ahead? Okay, got you. All right, Naeem. Let me see Naeem again. You have some question. I think the first one is Hamas going to actually stop attacking Israel, or are they still? I can't see. Can you please, technical people? I can't see Naeem. Can I see Naeem, please? Is Hamas going to stop after this ceasefire or continue? Number one. I think number two is Israel's expansionist ambition. Will they continue, given that Trump is now going to be in power as of Monday? I can't remember. I don't know whether you got the other two.
I got the other two, so let me go through them as best I can. Number one, look, this is a ceasefire deal that relates only to what is currently happening in Gaza. It doesn't address the issue of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory, which the ICJ has ruled already mid 2024 that occupation was illegal. It doesn't address that. It doesn't address Israel's apartheid policies. It doesn't address Israel's colonialism. In terms of international law, a population that is occupied, a population that is colonized, has the right to resist that occupation, even by armed means, if necessary, which means that Palestinians, Hamas or whoever else, Palestinians continue to have the right under international law to launch attacks against the occupying state. That right doesn't get given up because they have a ceasefire. So that right still exists for Palestinians, whether in Gaza, West Bank, or wherever. Secondly, will Israel continue with its expansion? I think we can say with certainty that they will. They have already, in the past 15 months, they have expanded their settlements in the West Bank more than they did in the 20 years before that. While we were all watching Gaza, they were expanding settlements in the West Bank. So I think that they will continue. All of this, of course, in violation of international law and has to be dealt with. The third question, engineer, what is the position of the Arab world? Not very good, unfortunately. But your two specific questions in terms of the supporting the rebuilding of Gaza, Qatar and Saudi Arabia have already said that they would contribute towards that. Qatar has made big promises about reconstruction funds. There might be one or two others that come on board, but there are other states that the United Arab Emirates supports Israel. That's clear. In terms of Israel annexing the West Bank, I think except for the UAE, the rest of the Arab world will speak out against it. They're not going to do anything about it, though. Is it time for South Africa to back down on the ICJ case? Absolutely not. This is the time to pursue it. The actual case now, in terms of the question of genocide, is being investigated by the ICJ as we speak. This case could take 5 years, 7 years to unfold before we have a ruling from the ICJ. But this is the kind of thing that should not be stopped. That you have a case of genocide, the genocide must be proven or proven that it wasn't. And if it is proven, then those who are responsible must be identified and they must be made to pay for it. So that case continues.
Okay, because we're literally at the last minute, this is a big question. Do you think Blinken, who has a nickname that, President Biden, who is called Genocide Joe and the rest of them, do you think Anthony Blinken and President Biden should also, not that they will, we know they won't, because America has made it clear that it's better than everybody else in the world, and so is Israel. But do you think they should actually also face charges?
Absolutely, they should. In terms of the Genocide Convention, Those responsible for genocide are guilty of that crime of genocide. Those who enable genocide are also responsible for that crime. And both of these men and the administration have enabled the genocide to take place, and they are therefore guilty of it and should pay the price for it. Unfortunately, of course, they are not signatories of the Rome Statute. They can't be hauled to the ICC, and so they like, and of course they're the superpower, so they likely won't. But the lies that we've been told, the more than $30 billion in genocide weaponry that has been supplied, etc., makes them complicit, as the Genocide Convention says, complicit in genocide.
Okay, I have a question on WhatsApp, which I'm trying to read now. Let me see. Sisi, okay, I can hear from your guests commending Hamas and saying you use this to the casualty and they have suffered from Israel. If that be the case, do you think anyone should blame Israel anymore for defending themselves? Okay, so this is literally to do with, you know, if Hamas is going to keep regrouping and giving the incursion into Israel on the 7th of the 10th, does anyone blame Israel for defending themselves, which is what Israel said? And we remember a great deal of world leaders, especially Western world leaders, kept saying Israel has a right to defend itself, Israel has a right to defend itself. The other side of that argument is, does Israel have a right to kill and commit genocide and break international law and the rules of law, etc., and use AI, you know, in densely populated areas?
More news and
Taiwo from Ejibo would like you to answer that.
Firstly, the issue of Israel's right to self-defense is a lie by all of these leaders, because the relevant section of the United Nations Charter that talks about a state's right to self-defense is about the right that a state has to defend itself against another state.
You have 30 seconds. Yeah.
Palestinians are not a state. Palestinians are an occupied population, and international law gives an occupied people the right to resist. Israel has no right to self-defense and no right to violate international law.
Naim, Jeenah, we always run out of time. Thank you so much. It's been fabulous talking to you. And now I'm jealous of you because you're in sunny Africa. And here I am, freezing. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care, I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Over 1.5, I be you one bet. Say, but seem no go score at all. Yeah, we get better pay out to one. No worry, we there for you. Our odd chapurata, in all day for bet baba. We win money, bet baba. Cash out today easy, or bet baba. We get online games for you to play. Oh God, all I want. Yeah, we get better bonus. Money me no dollar. Welcome to Bet Baba.
Register now on betbaba.ng. Not for people under 18.
Success is like a big mansion. You only see the magnificent edifice, not the strong foundation that holds it. Likewise, in the world of e-payments, you only see transactions done and funds remitted. But who pioneered these financial technology solutions? Well, you knew it as Value Card, now Unified Payments, Nigeria's premier financial technology service provider. Yes, it starts here. Find out more at www.up-ng.com.
Unified Payments, innovations that work for you.
When you have bars in the sky, onboard showers and award-winning in-flight entertainment, it's no surprise that Emirates was recently named the best airline in the world. We fly you to over 140 destinations, and with partners across the globe, we connect you to another 1,700 cities across 6 continents. So when we say we're also the largest international airline, what we really mean is, if you're going there, so are we. Book now on Emirates.com. Fly Emirates. fly better.
Find amazing treats for everyone this holiday with Showmax. Celebrate like a champion with soccer.
Very well taken.
Find your festive inspo with our masters of style.
That's what I'm here for.
Embark on a fun-filled global adventure.
Here we go.
Share your love moments with family and friends.
My son, the most handsome.
And enjoy some truly royal spoils.
I want the power to control what happens in my life.
Only on Showmax, because everyone deserves a holiday treat.
Attention, Airtel customers. If your line has been blocked, then this is for you. Head to the nearest Airtel shop with your NIN. Our friendly staff will help you get your line back up and running. Don't let a blocked line keep you out of touch.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
A better way to stay connected.
Listen, fellas and girls.
Download the Nigeria Info mobile app on iOS and Google Play Store. Join the conversation and stay connected. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The conversation is just a click away. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Not many can serve you the way we do.
We go all the way.
You guys are always keeping your voice down when you're benefiting from the government.
We remain loyal to bring you the details and stories around the world.
The boys in that environment were just shooting and pursuing them.
Shooting?
I escaped that place in a whisker.
AP, PDP, they are comedians. I'm not going to come to this platform to campaign for anybody. I will not to stand there because it's a problem.
Only on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Update on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Lagos, it is 5 p.m. Here are the headlines this hour. Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa has directed officers of the Nigerian Armed Forces to ensure the protection of innocent citizens, stressing that no harm should come to them under any circumstance. Whereas the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is set to arraign the chairman of Honeywell Group, Chief Oba Otudeko, alongside a former managing director of First Bank, Olabisi Onosonia, over alleged financial crimes. Julius Abure remains the national chairman of the Labour Party, according to recent developments within the party, while the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Mojisola Miranda, has pledged to work closely with Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and other arms of government to ensure effective governance. Lamata has announced that 6 additional train sets will arrive in Lagos soon, enhancing the state's public transportation system. Osun State Governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, has imposed a curfew in Ifon and Ilobu following renewed communal clashes in the area. On the foreign scene, Israel's Security Cabinet has recommended approval of the Gaza ceasefire deal, with further deliberations ongoing. And popular social media platform TikTok faces a potential ban in the United States by Sunday, following the Supreme Court's rejection of an appeal against restrictions. Those are the headlines. This is Still Borderlines with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Yvonne Ohaifo. Thank you for your time.
A better way to stay connected.
Listen, fellas and girls.
Download Nigeria Info mobile app on iOS and Google Play Store. Join the conversation and stay connected. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The conversation is just a click away. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
It's not just the news or information.
It is more than you ask for.
What is our fee? When Lagos State says this organization is meant to help us out, and the people working there are not helping us out. You have a situation where people say it's normal that if your husband doesn't beat you, then he doesn't love you.
Where madness seems to be normalized, you will become mad.
And more of the rush you just can't stop.
It's the station for more talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Information is key.
It is power.
Information rules the world.
Get informed.
Stay informed. Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk. This is The Voice Note. The Voice Note. On 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
The tragedy of Nigeria began in 1986 when we did the structural adjustment program. When we were persuaded to devalue our currency every week for 32 years. When I went to school, and many of you are here, the Naira was $1.50. The Naira was almost £1 They came here, persuaded some brilliant men from Harvard and the World Bank that weekly devaluation was wonderful. 32 years of devaluing your currency until we hit 527. And they were still telling us that the Naira was still overvalued. That brought poverty, misery upon us. Because every time you bring in a shipload of rice, you also bring in a shipload of unemployment. Because you are transferring your wealth to sustain other economies. Somehow, Nigerians didn't notice it. So we became a nation of importers. Import, milk, sugar, toothpicks, toothpaste, handkerchiefs, pencils. We don't make. Let nobody take it lightly. These guys have seized this country's economy. They've taken us hostage, and they have no intention of giving up. Because this is a huge market, a very sweet market, and they have taken control. These young boys and girls who have no jobs today are not going to allow us to carry on enjoying life at their expense. They need jobs. They need jobs. They are children. They've graduated, they've come back home to begin a second childhood because there's no factory to employ them. And the ministries can't take anymore. But somebody is making sure you fail. To cure Nigerians of that malady will take a while.
This is The Voice Note. The Voice Note. On 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
But Nigeria is the only member of OPEC country that imports more than 90 to 95% of refined petroleum products to meet our domestic needs and consumption. In other OPEC countries, the reverse is the case. All other OPEC countries meet their domestic requirements through domestic refining capacity, through their own domestic refineries, and then they export. We are the only country that our refineries have been, we have 4 refineries that have not been able to refine any product in the last 6 years. People are working, managements are there, and money is being spent.
We report, you decide. Topical conversations that matter to you.
There are people for personal, religious, whatever reasons who do not want to take a vaccine. And I think they have the rights.
They cannot go to us to stop insecurity. It's to force people to take vaccine. Let them come and kill me. I can never take it.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Experience a better way to stay connected.
Listen, fellas and girls.
Download the Nigeria Info mobile app on iOS and Google Play Store. Join the conversation and stay connected. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The conversation is just a click away. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Be part of the discussion. It's Borderline.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info. Above and beyond borders. Beyond borders. It's Borderline.
With Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. This is The Voice Note on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
I have a dream. I am no Martin Luther King, but I am Olajumo Akinloluwa. Fellow citizens, imagine a country with no definite population, a nation where its people don't agree with its ideals. A person, an individual born to no nation. Seems impossible, huh? Because every nation, regardless of its population, be it over 800 or over 1.4 billion, will have citizens. But citizenship is not geographical. It's about identity, shared beliefs, and patriotism. Obafemi Awolowo once said, Nigeria is not a nation, it's a mere geographical expression. And sadly, these words are still painfully relevant as our shared Nigerian identity is still a far expectation rather than a reality. Awolowo's words were a call to action, to build and create Nigerians, true Nigerians that will be committed to the purpose of creating the nation we all deserve. Decades later, the same thing. This call is still unmet. The scars of the Civil War wounded us deeply and we've still never healed. And although we may have come together to create a country in 1960, the wars that followed it tore apart the fragile unity our independence was supposed to build. And you see, these wars, political, ethnical, social, have wounded us deeply and created a legacy that continues to haunt us. It's not even just about the war itself. It's about how bad governance, corruption, and the failure to meet the promises of unity have intensified our division as a country. Bad governance has continued to intensify and reinforce religious and tribalistic divisions instead of fostering unity. Instead of investing in a Nigerian identity, our leaders are over there pitching one group against the other, using ethnical, social, and political tools to maintain power. Sad. And this division between citizens and true Nigerians continue to deepen, and our leaders are exploiting it for their own personal gain. As Peter Obi once tweeted,
Above and beyond borders. Beyond borders. It's Borderline.
With Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
Above and beyond borders. Beyond borders. It's Borderline.
With Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
Welcome back to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. Okay, people, I have another special guest with me. This time, we're not flying. We are staying in Nigeria. We've given...
This is a repeat broadcast.
Above and beyond borders. Beyond borders. It's Borderline.
With Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
Welcome back to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. Okay, people, I have another special guest with me. This time, we're not flying. We are staying in Nigeria. We've given extensive coverage to the Israeli-Palestine conflict. In fact, Israeli-Gaza war. If you've been following and if you've been listening, by now, you should know that the highlights of this 76-year-old genocide, displacement, Nakba, conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, includes, but not limited to, certain points. Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. Remember the fact that Gaza is called officially by many as the world's largest open-air prison. The status of Jerusalem. The Israeli settlers and Israeli settlements, which has been judged by the ICJ to be illegal. The issue of borders and border control. The issue Israel constantly talks about security. What about the security for the Palestinians? We've also talked about water rights. The fact that Israel controls pretty much every element of survival for the Palestinians, including water. The permit regime. What is that? The permit regime is where for a Gazan to get out of Gaza to cross over to see their cousins.
This
who may
is
be
a
living
repeat broadcast.
in the West Bank, in Ramallah, in Rafah, in any of those places. They need to get a permit from Israel. Okay? They need to get a permit from Israel to be able to go. And if Israel says, we're not giving you a permit, they don't ever get to leave Gaza. The other issue is the Palestinian freedom of movement and the Palestinian right of return. Israel, from 1947, has been promoting the Palestinian right, the Israeli right to return. In actual fact, Zionism was mass adoption, if you like, massively adopted after 1948. Prior to that, Jews had not massively adopted it, but they adopted it as part of the campaign by Israel for Jews to return to Israel, well, Palestinian land, which is now called Israel. So the right, however, the other side of that is the fact that Palestinians do not get that right. The Palestinians, over 1 million Palestinians who were Nakba means expelled, in 1948, never got the right to return. Most of them became refugees all over the world. So anyway, now I can tell you about my special guest. He's the Nigerian former Minister of Tourism and Culture. He has been possibly, and I can't say this, I'll say this confidently, perhaps the most vocal Nigerian, if not the most vocal African individual, I'm talking about, not country, African, for the freedom of the Palestine, especially since October 7th. He recently had an interview with the Palestinian Public Broadcasting Corporation, something no other Nigerian has done. So we're going to play you the clips because I heard that interview and I thought, I need to have Chief Femi Fani-Kayode on this show because we've had him before. And we know he likes to give it straight. He talks straight. He doesn't mince his words. In fact, he's unforgiving. So you better brace up, people. So we're going to start this by playing his interviews and then we'll play clips and then he and I will discuss it. Chief, welcome.
Thank you very much. A great honor for me to be here. I appreciate your inviting me. Thanks so much.
It's an honor to have you. This is Borderlines, and of course, on Borderlines, straight talk, as straight as it comes, right? So let's start. So Israel, specifically the Netanyahu government, has continued to defy international resolutions and clamor for an end to its genocidal war in Gaza. For days, hundreds of thousands of Israelis have protested against Netanyahu's government on the streets and his continued refusal to end the offensive against Palestine. In fact, many of them now call him a liar, and they believe that he sacrificed the lives of their loved ones in order to have control of the Philadelphia corridor. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I am glad. It gladdens my heart, the fact that the Israelis themselves, probably the majority of them, openly or privately, have begun to recognize and accept the fact that their prime minister, their leader, Bibi Netanyahu, is nothing but a perfidious monster. He has no intention whatsoever of putting in place a ceasefire, having any kind of deal with the Palestinian people. He has no intention of allowing harmony and peace to continue in the West Bank. In fact, he wants to destroy and Gaza, the West Bank. And of course, he intends to continue to decimate, destroy, completely dismantle and eradicate Gaza and its people. That is his vision. That is his intention. And when you look at it, the fallout of that is that in Israel itself, many, including those that were in his own so-called war cabinet, are questioning his policies, questioning his tactics. The Americans are appealing to him morning, day and night to show restraint. The British have said they are no longer going to supply the same number of weapons that they did in the past. The new British government, they've cut down arms supply, saying that they do not want to be complicit in genocide. Anybody that calls what is going on in Gaza a war is either ignorant or being mischievous or is on the payroll of the Israelis. It is nothing but genocide, carnage, and massacre. And Bibi Netanyahu and his cabinet and his national security minister and his minister of finance, and indeed all of those that are around him, will be held accountable for their actions one day at the International Court of Justice.
Indeed.
At the International Criminal Court.
Of course, yes, indeed. So I'm going to play a clip from your interview at the Palestinian Broadcasting Authority. Just 1 second. Let's play that, please. And then I'm going to ask your comments.
Apart from the Kenyan government and perhaps one or two others that has not been brought to my attention, I can assure you that the overwhelming majority of African governments, and I really say this from the bottom of my heart, are solidly against this kind of evil activity because we understand it. It's been done to us over the years, and it was not easy for us to be liberated. Nelson Mandela was regarded as a terrorist at one point, but South Africa eventually was liberated after many, many years of apartheid. Rhodesia became Zimbabwe. Angola was free. Mozambique was free. Nigeria was free. It takes time. Yes, we do identify with this. We do recognize what the Jews are doing. We do regard it as being unacceptable, and we are with your people. Of course, the reality of it is that for many, many years, just like the rest of the world, we were subjected to propaganda of the worst form. Many of us believe strongly in the state of Israel, particularly the Christians. We loved the state of Israel. I was one of those that believed in Israel for many, many years, because throughout my Western education, I was told that Israel could do no wrong. And as a Christian, I believed that this was the right thing to do. But then it occurred to me that the Israel of the Bible, that the Bible spoke about, that God loved, and that God and that also loved God, is certainly not the Israel of today. Today, the Israel that we have are basically, white European settlers who came to your part of the world in 1948. Some came even later, and they were foisted on you. These are not even original Semites. These are not people that come from there. These are essentially European settlers, and they have established a colonial state in your parts of the world, and they have occupied the land, and they're killing the people, the indigenous people of the land. This is something that we can identify with in Africa because we know what it's like to suffer such things. So we are with you. We understand. It's not just passion. It's not just talking. We are with you in every way. And I assure you, this fight is a fight against injustice. And I say it again, it is only a question of time. The price that is being paid now in blood, they kill everybody. They've killed not just Palestinian leaders, they've killed not just Hanania, they've killed not just Palestinian leaders, both from Fatah, both from Hamas, even those that are non-aligned at all. They've killed Palestinian intellectuals, women and children. They've killed everybody. They're also killing leaders of other countries in the Middle East.
I've got a question for you. Despite 11 months of awareness, education, interviews, with the likes of yourself, with historians, with the likes of Ken Roth of Human Rights Watch, with Israeli pastors, etc. They all still believe Israel is defending itself against terrorists. They refer to the Hamas attack on October the 7th as a terrorist attack. Is this issue about terrorism? Again, let me bring in another point in there. Some 20-odd countries in the West have prescribed Hamas as a terrorist organization, including the UK, the US, the EU, etc., etc. What are your thoughts on that? Is this a case of Israel defending itself against terrorism as a result of October 7th? Or is it something somewhat more sinister?
Yeah. Well, the fallacy, in direct answer to your question, The first part of the question is this, that, what do I think about October the 7th and what people have termed as genocide, and that's where it all started. The fallacy of the argument that it started on October the 7th is simply this, that they fail to appreciate the history of this struggle. Those that say it started on October the 7th appear to have forgotten that for 75 years before October the 7th, the Palestinian people have been subjected to October the 7th like attacks virtually every other day, where the Israelis will go into their territory, kill their people, displace them, destroy them, and take everything from them. Gaza was nothing other than a concentration camp. I mean, water couldn't go in, food couldn't go in, people could move around freely. They were treating the people of Gaza as if they were animals. Now, when you cage human beings and treat them as animals and tell them they have no rights and say that foreigners cannot bring food into their territory, and you blockade them from the sea, and you treat them like not second, not third class citizens, but slaves, and systematically you torture them and kill them and bomb them whenever you feel like it, at the slightest excuse with the most sophisticated weapons, they lose all sense of humanity and they begin to react. I commend the fact that it took the Palestinian people, or the people of Gaza, almost 75 years of reasonable restraints before they actually decide to rise up and do something. Now, coming to October the 7th, of course, I deplore the killing of women and children. But the reality is this, and you need to ask yourself this question. What I'm about to tell you is a very profound question I'm going to ask you, and it may take you a while to figure it out. The most sophisticated security agency in the world, which Mossad and Shin Bet are, one of the most sophisticated armies and powerful armies in the world, which the Israeli army is, will suddenly allow people to come through their border like that, without detection, unable to stop them, and tell us the lie that it was all Hamas coming in. The reality is this. They wanted it to happen. They knew it was going to happen. It has been reported in Jerusalem on Israeli TV that on 2 occasions, the Netanyahu government were warned by the IDF and security agencies that there would be an attack. And they did nothing about it. They wanted it to happen. They wanted the people to come in. And when they came in, what happened. These are the reactions of people that have been suppressed and subjugated and occupied and dehumanized for 75 years. And when such people are allowed through your border on purpose, there you know all hell will break loose. So I do deplore the killing of innocent people on all sides, but at the same time, you need to understand it within its context. The Palestinian people are literally at war and are being subjugated, and they reacted in a very, very effective manner, in a way that I, somehow do not really applaud, because I don't like killing people. But the reality is that what did you expect them to do? If people came to your land and did precisely what the Israelis have been doing to us here in Nigeria, or to a section of Nigeria, let's say the Western region, and you expect us to keep quiet and do nothing, we would have 1,000 Hamasis overnight, and people would be glad to go in and commit all kinds of atrocities in the name of liberation of their people. So that's my view on that. It didn't start on October the 7th. It started 75 years ago. The problem is that most people have no idea, because they were never interested in finding out the truth, because we had been sold the lie by the international media and Western historians that it is only the Palestinians and the Muslims that are terrorists. This is wrong. It is completely unacceptable. And the reality is it started long before that. So as bad as October 7th was, you have to understand for what it was. And you have to accept the fact that these people were acting what I would call self-defense. Now, in terms of, I believe everybody has the right to defend themselves, including Israel. But there's a distinction between defending yourself and defending your borders. Yes, Hamas throws a few rockets, this is what they say, over the border. Therefore, you now come in with the most sophisticated weapons and level the whole place. That was what was happening before, okay? As the slightest excuse. Of course, everyone has the right to defend themselves. But what the Israelis fail to appreciate, and the Americans that support them fail to appreciate, is this. There is a distinction between self-defense and genocide. You defend yourself against armies that are fighting you, against fighting men, against warriors. You send your warriors, your soldiers, to fight them, and may the best man win. But in this situation, the Israeli Defense Force has gone in there and killed no less than about 40 to 45,000 identifiable people. I can assure you it's a lot more than that. By the time were allowed to have access to that place, you will have at least 100,000 women and children, 50% of whom are children. They've killed more journalists than at any other conflict in the history of the world. They've leveled more hospitals, killed doctors, targeting babies. This is what they're doing. That is not self-defense. That is genocide. That is barbarity, and it is inexcusable, and it violates and breaks every single international norm and war, every single law of war, and every law of decency and humanity, including their own Torah. It is a disgrace what is going on there, and it cannot be described as war. And you cannot justify mass murder, ethnic cleansing, genocide, and the determination to completely wipe out a whole race of people, wipe them out and exterminate them in the same way that Hitler wanted to exterminate the Jews. You cannot justify that simply because of October the 7th, especially when you have been doing something similar that was done to you on October the 7th for almost 75 years before that. So that's the reality. I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
That's fine. No. You answered all of it. Thank you so much. I want to play another clip from your interview, and I'm hoping you might need to put, in order for you to hear it, you might need to go mute on your computer, but you would be able to hear it. So we'll do that. Right, go on mute. Thanks. And then I'll play it.
Jerusalem is the heart, in terms of capitals throughout the world and throughout history, is the heart of not just the Jewish faith, but also the Christian faith and also the Islamic faith. It's the heart. You have Al-Aqsa Mosque there. You've had churches there, some of the earliest churches. You have all kinds of religious sites there. All three of the great monotheistic faiths are represented in Jerusalem, and they consider it to be the heart of their faith. It is unacceptable to treat Muslims as if they are filth in Jerusalem. It is unacceptable to say that you want to build your second or third Jewish temple over the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is precisely what they really have in mind. They want to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is unacceptable to burn churches, close churches, spit on Christians, and urinate all over Christians. A lot of people don't know this is what they do in Jerusalem. It is unacceptable to give the impression that Jerusalem belongs to the Jews and to the Jews alone. The world has changed now. Yes, as a believer, as a Christian, I believe strongly in the role of Jerusalem, as any other Christian would. But the Jerusalem I believe in is a Jerusalem for all, where Christians, Muslims, and even Jews can preach and that can exercise their religious beliefs in peace without any harassment from any pagan government, because the government of Israel, in my view, is not even a Jewish government. It's a pagan government. It's a Zionist government. And Theodor Herzl was a pagan. He was a Zionist. He was not a Jew. He was a Kabbalist. Okay? This is what they're doing there. It's nothing to do with religious faith. So what they're doing to you, what they're doing to my people, that is the Christian people and the Muslim people of the world in Jerusalem and throughout that whole region, is unacceptable. And Israel has to understand something. If it is that you believe that it is only the Zionists that have the right to worship anywhere and have the right to exist, if you really believe that, you are knocking on the door of World War III. If you push the thing too far, not just the entire Muslim world, but the whole of the Christian world, except for a few deluded and misguided, maybe 15, 20% of American Christians who know no better. The Muslim world, the Christian world, they will rise up against the state of Israel, and we will end up having a third world war over Israel. I pray to God this doesn't happen, because war is evil, and I do not believe in violence. However, they are pushing and knocking on that door. May that door never open. May they not go too far. May they respect the rights of the Palestinian people and the rights of Muslims and Christians, and even respect themselves when it comes to the affairs of Jerusalem and the affairs of the Middle East.
The world is on standby. Iran has said they will respond. You've got what's going on in southern Israel with Lebanon. Of course, the fact that Israel continues to wage war against Gazans, all under the quest of looking for Yahya Sinwar. Here's the thing. Mentioned Jerusalem, and it's so critically important because with Jerusalem, one has to look at the fact that Zionism and Judaism are not the same things. Yet many conflate them together. Judaism, Christianity, Muslim are all part of